People think marrying a mafia boss means you sign away your right to peace. They imagine danger knocking on the door every night. Gunshots. Screaming phones. Blood that never quite washes off. But nobody warns you about the quiet. Nobody tells you that the most painful part isn't fear. It's absence. When I married Baek Jin-Woo, the world decided who I was before I could speak for myself. They said I married power. They said I married money. They said I married a man who would eventually betray me. They said, men like him don't know how to stay faithful. And I believed them. At least a little. Because Baek Jin-Woo wasn't just a man. He was a name that made rooms fall silent. A presence that shifted air. A man whose calm voice carried consequences people never recovered from. But at home, he was just Jin-Woo. He remembered how I took my tea. He rested his hand on my back when he passed me in the hallway, like a habit he never wanted to lose. He called me when meetings ran late, not to explain, just to hear my voice. That's why the change confused me. It didn't happen all at once. At first, he came home tired. Then later than usual. Then not at all. He stopped lingering in doorways. Stopped brushing past me on purpose. Stopped asking how my day was. And still, he never raised his voice. Never snapped. Never smelled like another woman. Which somehow made it worse. Because when a man cheats, there are signs. But when a man withdraws, you start looking for the fault in yourself. I replayed our last conversations over and over. Had I said something wrong? Had I become boring? Had loving him too gently made me forgettable? The nights were the hardest. I would lie awake in the dark, listening for the sound of his car. Sometimes I heard it. Sometimes I didn't. And when he did come home, he slept like a stranger. Turned away, distant, guarded. A whole month passed like that. 30 days of unanswered questions. 30 days of pretending not to notice that my own husband was disappearing from me. Friends told me to be patient. Enemies told me I was foolish. But nobody told me the truth. That loving a powerful man means learning how to sit with uncertainty. Without losing yourself. I didn't confront him. Not because I was afraid of him, but because I was afraid of the answer. Because if Baek Jin-Woo looked me in the eyes and said, I don't love you anymore, I didn't know who I would become after that. So instead, I watched. I watched how he scanned rooms before entering. How his jaw tightened when my phone rang. How his men began rotating shifts more frequently. Things I didn't understand yet. All I understood was that I felt invisible. And invisibility hurts more than hatred. The night I wore the suit, I didn't plan to start a fight. I planned to survive one. I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. Not adjusting my hair. Not checking my makeup. Just looking. I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. She looked softer than she used to. Quieter. Like someone waiting to be chosen. That scared me. So I changed. I put on the black tailored suit, sharp lines, structured shoulders, no softness to hide behind. It wasn't seductive. It was deliberate. When I stepped into the living room, the house felt different. Like it sensed a shift before anyone else did. Baek Jin-Woo walked in minutes later. And for the first time in weeks, he stopped. Not because I looked beautiful, but because I looked like someone he didn't control. You're dressed differently, he said carefully. So are you, I replied. You've been cold for weeks. The silence between us thickened. I didn't shout. Didn't accuse. I married a mafia boss, I said. I knew the risks. I just didn't expect to disappear. His eyes darkened, not with anger, but something closer to fear. For a month, Jin-Woo, I continued softly. No warmth. No truth. No us. My voice trembled despite my effort. If there's someone else, just tell me. That's when it happened. The man who never flinched under pressure. Flinched. There is no other woman, he said quickly. Never has been. His hands shook slightly. I noticed because I had memorized them. Then he told me the truth. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Like a confession he never wanted to make. There had been whispers. Then confirmations. Then a contract. My name. A clean hit. Professional. Quiet. He told me he stayed away because fear creates patterns. And patterns get people killed. He told me he slept lightly so I could sleep deeply. That he chose my loneliness over my funeral. I felt something inside me collapse. All those nights I thought he stopped loving me. He had been fighting a war for my breath. I chose to let you hate me, he said, voice breaking. Because I couldn't survive losing you. That was the moment I realized something irreversible. Loving Baek Jin-Woo was never about romance. It was about endurance. About trusting someone who protects you in ways that look like abandonment. Until you understand the cost. I took a step toward him. The suit no longer felt like armor. It felt like grief. And as I stood there, watching the strongest man I knew unravel in front of me, I understood something terrifying. This love wouldn't end quietly. Because when someone puts a target on love itself, the story is far from over. Stay tuned for part 2.